Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. My name is Sarah Hashimoto. I am an editor at Library Journal, and I will be speaking today with the multi-award-winning poet and author Jacqueline Woodson. Jacqueline is a four-time Newbery Honor winner, a four-time National Book Award finalist, a three-time Coretta Scott King Award winner. She is a MacArthur Fellow and a winner of the Hans Christian Andersen Medal, and she served as the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature from 2018 to 2019. She is a star. She writes about families, about memories, about growing up and defining oneself. She writes about race and class and gender and hope. And I am delighted, over the moon, to be speaking with her today about audiobooks and the soon to be released re-recording of Brown Girl Dreaming, as well as new recordings of over 24 of her previous works. These are due out in May of this year, right around the corner, and it's something I'm really looking forward to. So welcome, Jacqueline.
Hey,
Hi.
Sarah.
So nice
So
to
good to be
see
here.
you. Wonderful to talk to you. It really, I have admired you for so long, and I kind of can't even believe this is happening. You've just been such a luminary. So I wanted to talk about your new project, which
Mhm.
is huge and so cool and so exciting. It is recording and re-recording many of your previous works, a whole range from Each Kindness and Showway to the luminous National Book Award winner Brown Girl Dreaming, which is just wonderful. Can you share how this idea came to be, and what brought it into fruition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited about it. I'm excited about just being able to download and hear the books, even though I wrote them and have a good sense of what the story is in my head still. But I think it began with performing some of the books. Um, my friend Toshi Regan, who's a musician, and I have done projects around Brown Girl Dreaming. We did a project around my adult book, Read at the Bone, where I read passages over her songs, over her playing music, and she wrote a couple of songs for different parts of the book. And so that performance led to me really thinking about the musicality of the books and the idea of other voices besides my own telling the story. And Sarah Jaffe, who's my fabulous producer director over at Audible, I'm sorry, over at Penguin Random House, was really instrumental in helping me ideate around how we could make this something else. And then I did a production at Symphony Space here in New York City, where I got a bunch of my friends together to read parts of Brown Girl Dreaming. And when they read, they interpreted the book so differently than I did. You know, parts of it that I hadn't thought of were funny were suddenly hilarious. The parts of it had a completely different cadence to it. And it was exciting to see this book in this new light. And we just started going for it and really thinking about how the other books can have a new life with the reinterpretation of the audio.
Did you first imagine that it would be only Brown Girl Dreaming, that you would have this revamp and then the others joined in, or was it always conceived of as the whole from the beginning?
Brown Girl Dreaming was definitely what started it all. And then thinking about Brown Girl Dreaming, we started thinking about what kind of impact doing something like this would have on the other books. And it's interesting because you never think of audiobooks getting dated, right? It's the story that you enjoy listening to sometimes again and again, but it's almost like a chance for a new story, right? Even though you know how it's going to end, you know what the character arcs are, you know what the setting is, hearing the interpretation through someone else really can change the narrative. So yeah, just start with us thinking about Brown Girl Dreaming outside of the Jacqueline Woodson voice, and then thinking about other books where this would be an interesting thing to do with them.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's true about your work, specifically your work is that the poetry of it comes through. And so for me, when I listen to poetry, being able to
Mhm.
come at it in a different place at a different
Yeah.
time, and I'm often listening, I listen all the time. And so I might be out in my garden, I might be out on a walk, I might be doing dishes, something, but like each of those experiences comes into play when I'm listening to it. And so I
Mhm.
think that it's really easy and recommended to re-listen to your work. So I can that perspective is very interesting. Um,
I'm so glad you listened to poetry. I was so addicted to the Slowdown, which is the podcast that Tracy K. Smith did, and she would read a poem and then interpret it for tell us why she chose that poem and then interpret it. And then Major Jackson did it for a while, but also Padre Gotuma has a podcast called Poetry Unbound that I love listening to. And it is, for me, it's a way of writing, just understanding how other narratives come to be and to have them broken down really helps me think about my own language and storytelling. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that you listen to it too.
I have a friend who I used to serve on audiobook committees with, and she was always like she's very involved in poetry circles, and she was always like, poetry must be listened to. You must listen. So I took that
Agree.
to heart. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about Brown Girl Dreaming. This is your memoir slash personal slash family history. It was first published in 2014 and released as a single narrator production with you as the
Yeah.
narrator. And now it's coming out as a full cast recording,
Mm-hmm.
and that's coming out in May. Can you tell us a little bit about what listeners might look forward to and some of the things that you're excited about in this production?
Um, Yes, I am excited to hear so many different voices of actors who I've loved, who I think are bringing something so different to the story. We have Big Frida, we have Tika Sumpter, we have Lena Waithe, we have Danae Benton. All of these um, people who have read the book and the book has had some sort of impact on their their work and their lives coming and bringing that into the story is really exciting and so different from when I read it. When I chose to read it because it's my memoir, it's my story, and I didn't think anyone else could interpret it like I could. And then having the book be in the world for now over 10 years, which is crazy. The idea of, because it touched so many people and having some of those people come to it and tell their story through the reading of Brown Girl Dreaming is kind of spectacular for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I am dying to listen to it. I'm really
Ah,
excited about it. And at first I thought the same thing, sort of like, well, this is Jacqueline Woodson. How can other people like how are they going
mm-hmm,
to be involved in the telling of this? And that sent me on a whole line thinking, which I think is actually one of the things I'm excited about with this
mm-hmm,
is like rethinking about the book, which is like, okay. So it doesn't say Jacqueline Woodson dreaming. It says Brown Girl Dreaming, which is
mm-hmm,
different and more universal. And yes, it's a personal story, but it's also in many ways a universal story that so many
mm-hmm,
people from different backgrounds can identify with. And so it is kind of cool to have the voices of different people sharing in
mm-hmm.
that. And also very brave, I think, of you, because that would be hard for me.
To let it
So,
go like
yeah,
that.
it would be hard for me. I can see, like it's the sort of thing where you write something and you put it out there, and then suddenly
Mm-hmm,
it's not I mean, yes, you're the writer and the creator, but you're also letting other people do with it what they will. And so
Yes.
that's a scary thing.
But that's what you do with the book as a writer, right? The reader does
Hmm.
with it what
Yeah.
they will, and you
Yes.
will hear about it in a DM and a letter. The good, the bad, and the ugly of what their interpretation of the book is. And it's interesting because I do think also the people I chose to narrate it are people I really trust. I mean, like one of the people narrating it is Marley Dias, who started 10,000 Black Girl Books, and Brown Girl Dreaming was inspirational to her as a young reader. You know, her finding that book sent her on her own journey, and she grew up. Now she's about to graduate from Harvard and has done all this great stuff, and we became friends, and hearing her stories about the impact of the book and about so many books made me know that I could trust her to get come to the mic and interpret the book, or someone like Lena um, Waite, who's a really good friend of mine and who we talk a lot, and she was so excited to do that. And Dominique Fishback, who is another actor who I've never met, but the fact that she said yes says to me that because it doesn't pay that well. Like, I don't think anyone's coming to it to do it for the money. It's about the interpretation. It's about what the story meant to them. So that makes me, just have a little bit more trust in how they're going to do it. And Montego Glover, who actually read from the book at Symphony Space, and when I heard I was like, oh, please come do the audiobook. I love the way you read this. So yeah, it definitely is letting go of my vision of what the um, oral interpretation is supposed to sound like. But I feel like I'm also getting a gift in the interpretation of these readers.
Wow. That's really cool. I think I as you were talking, I was thinking about um, you know, being a mother and having a child and, having all these like thoughts and plans and all of that and that you think about with your child, but then also your child is their own self and their own person, and then they go out into the world and do things, and sometimes you like them and sometimes you don't, but they're precious because they're their own self and they're a force out in the world and
Hmm.
changing things, and I think for me as a mother, it's like such an honor to be part of that process, and I see some parallels, which is kind of cool. Um,
It is
uh,
so true. That's such a great analogy because that sweet honey song, "Your children are not your children." Um, they come through you, but they're not of you, and though they are with you, they belong not to you. And I think of that as like we create these beings, and we co-create these beings, and they are beings. They are 100% themselves, and yeah, sometimes they make those choices. That I feel like that happens in the writing process as well, right? I remember Cornelius Eady saying, sometimes the story knows more than you do about what it's trying to say. So you're on this path of writing, and this not so much for Brown Girl Dreaming, but yeah, for Brown Girl Dreaming too. But you think you're going to tell one story, and then it becomes a whole other story. Like with Brown Girl Dreaming, I started writing that, trying to understand how, Jacqueline Woodson, who was this slow reader, who was not this exceptional student, who, kind of came from this family, being raised by a single mom in a working class poor neighborhood, became this writer, right? Became Jacqueline Woodson and won all these awards and was able to write all these books. So it's like, how did that happen? And really investigating that through the narrative. And then in the middle of writing the book, my mom died suddenly. And, of course, I stopped writing for a while. But when I picked it back up, the question was, how did I get here through her? Right? How did I become who I am because of who she was? So the narrative shifted, and it became about, my mother and the choices she made to take us from Ohio to South Carolina, from South Carolina to New York City, and what became of my journey because of those choices. So it is interesting. I don't even know how I got off on this tangent, but it is interesting that to look at the audiobook is becoming something different. And I feel like when I've let go of other audiobooks to actors, sometimes I loved what the actors did and sometimes not so much. It was like, that's not how I heard it in my head. Like I heard it in my head differently. And when you're writing a picture book, of course you let go, right? Because you let the illustrator um, interpret your words. And with an audiobook, you do let that actor interpret your words and you hope that their intonations and the choice of the way they tell that story is one that comes close to how it happened in your head.
Yeah, yeah. I had a conversation with Jason Reynolds and he said something very similar, which is sort of like he with the audios of his work that he kind of, he has the written work or whatever it looks like, and then he just puts it out there and there's so much trust and
Mhm,
you never quite know exactly how it's going to
mhm.
turn out, but that's a little bit of the adventure, I guess.
Yes, it's so
So,
true.
um, so it sounds like you were pretty involved in the casting decisions. Did you? I think that like that can go either way. Sometimes authors have no idea, and sometimes they're deeply involved. What
Mhm,
have you? I mean, many of your books have been narrated by you, so I think
mhm.
you were always intimately involved in that. But how was that to be part of that process?
Sarah Jaffe just makes it all of it so easy. I feel like I'm so lucky to be walking on this earth at the same time that she's helping to put these audiobooks into the world. But I it was it one thing they did with the audiobooks was sent me a bunch of auditions of people reading it, and I got to choose which voice sounded closest to what I had in my head. And sometimes none of them did, and they found more auditions and sent me those. And sometimes actors audition for one role, and I was like, no, they're not quite right for that. But here's this role of Carlton in Behind You is a great role for them. So it was fun. It was hard because I'm usually working on more than one thing at a time. So I'm working on an adult book. I was working on two picture books. I run a nonprofit. And so all of these things. And then, I open up my computer and there's a cache of auditions that I have to take an hour to listen to and respond to. And sometimes the technology isn't always that great. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I would never go into it blind again. There were, I think, early on, I wasn't able to really choose who read the books in the same way that as an early, by as an early um, writer, I wasn't able to choose my illustrators. So as it became more
Oh,
established,
right.
and it was I had more power as a creator to think about the whole project, not just the words, but the pictures and who was going to draw those pictures, and not just my story, but the narrative, who was going to narrate that story, which is nice. So I'm grateful that I'm at this point where I can really be engaged in that process of all of it, not just the story that comes out of
Oh,
my head.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I had not thought about that with picture books. Because I'm such a listener, I'm always focused on the
Mm-hmm.
audio, so I never really, but that's interesting. Um, so as far as Brown Girl Dreaming is concerned, I saw the thing on Facebook and I assume that it's gone up in other ways too of, inviting people to share their stories or their memories or what they remember about Brown Girl Dreaming. And I was wondering, are there any of those that you might want to share with us today?
I haven't listened to those yet. I'm scared.
Oh, I don't think you should be scared. It's going to
Oh,
be wonderful.
I'm sure they're going to be wonderful, and they're going to embarrass me, and they're going to um, stress me out a little bit because I'll be like, oh no, I hope this book holds up. I hope this audiobook holds up for them. Um, so I will listen, but yeah, I haven't yet.
I imagine that it will be uncomfortable only in that people are going to be heaping praise on you, and
Oh,
so it's
so
something to do
funny.
when you need a boost.
I will listen. It's funny. I think it's in the same way that I can't watch myself on television or or listen to my voice too much, but listening to people talk about Jacqueline Woodson's memoir, I think, like,
Yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk about some of the other titles too that are being released. And I heard that The Other Side is the only title that is not being re-recorded, and this is staying as the original recording of your daughter's reading when she was young.
mhm,
And
yeah.
I am wondering, what was it like to revisit that recording? And did you share it with your daughter? Did you listen together? And how is that like standing up over the years?
It's so I haven't shared it with Toshi yet. I was mad at Toshi because Toshi went to school. She's graduated college now. She's 24 years old. She does stand-up comedy and all of this stuff. But she had wanted to be a part of the audiobooks, and she didn't send in an audition. And I was like, girl, get your audition together. And I was like, there's not enough nepotism in the world to do something if you're not auditioning, like at least get an audio out there. So, but I had never intended. Her voice on that is so sweet and so young and so spot on for the narrator, that I didn't want to change that at all. I felt like it really held up over the years in this glorious way. So, and for a lot of the picture books like Showway, or Gracie, a bunch of them I do the audio for, and I was like, no, that one is really great the way it is. So, and I do think, oh, I share it with her, but um, yeah, I'm sure she'll be like, oh man, I'm so bummed I didn't get that audition in. But live and learn.
Oh, but that's such a precious thing. I mean, that's really something to treasure. I think that's really cool. I didn't know that she was the one who narrated that, and so I'm going to have to take a re-listen with that
Hmm.
information. So that's really cool.
I'm
But
sorry.
yeah, so you
I'm
have
so
been
sorry.
the primary narrator for many of your audiobooks,
Hmm.
and as a listener. I've always appreciated listening to the rhythm of your speech and feeling the
Hmm.
poetry in it. And I I think it's like a palpable thing. I can just like feel that, and I can uh, see where you're putting a pause, and then like the words are different because of that. It's a very
Oh,
powerful experience. And I am wondering, authors often fall into, a couple of camps. Some of them are,
uh-huh.
I will never read my thing. I never want to listen to my voice. No, this is not what I do. And others are like, I will narrate, and I love it and it's fun. And so I'm just wondering, like, how did that feel to you? I think of poets often as being people who read their own work, and I am thankful for it. So I didn't know if that had any influence on
Um,
it, or, but anyhow, I wanted to see what you thought.
I everything I write, I have to read it out loud, and it has to sound a certain way. Like I just printed out a short story that was due last week. That after this interview, I'm going to stand and read it and listen to it and make the edits there. So I have a sense of what the stories sound like in the world anyway. And reading my audiobooks, it was definitely a learning curve in that there were things I had to learn about my voice and the cadence and everything from mouth sounds. Like you don't want to Like, and now I can't listen to an audiobook without hearing somebody's mouth sounds and thinking, oh, the editor should have cut that out. Because it is that it's like John Gardner, who wrote Becoming a Novelist, talks about the fictive dream, right? That when you're reading a book, you're in that dream of fiction and you're lost and you think that story is true, no matter how outside the real world it is. And something like a mouth sound or a grumbling stomach breaks the dream of fiction, right? So you're listening to the audiobook and you're like, wait a second, I'm just listening to someone speak now. like, and so in learning how to read my books for audio, I had to learn a lot about how to deal with my mouth, even the way I open it or the way I um, when I swallow, or like making sure it's not too super crisp after having a drink of water. And that was fun. I think as we get older, we don't always pick up a lot of new skills. And so the challenge of learning how to do that and being able to do it hopefully pretty well was really, really fun for me. I really like going into that studio and closing that door and, sealing myself off with that narrative and being able to go into the personality of whatever story it is I'm telling.
Yeah. So have all of your books been recorded in the studio, or do you do them at home? The
Um,
pandemic's changed everything. So
yeah, the all of them are in studios. Some of them now PRH has these great studios at the in the building. But in the past, when I was upstate, I went to a studio upstate. There's a studio here in Brooklyn that I've recorded at. I know Lena has a studio in her house, so she can just go right into her in-home studio and record. But I don't really have that kind of space because it has to be soundproof, and really the sound can't be bouncing all over the place, and you want it to be super consistent. So I don't have that ability. I don't have the capability for that here.
yeah, yeah. Was that, I speak with narrators a lot, and I mean their voice is like it is their livelihood, it is like everything. And so they take really good care of it and don't
Yeah,
stay up late drinking and all of these things before
it's true.
a recording session. And
No greasy food.
right, right. Like, don't be like, I don't know, having McDonald's and then going into the recording studio, like all of these things. And I am wondering, how was that for you? So that's like somebody who's like a pretty good runner,
hmm
then jumping
hmm
into a marathon. Like, how was that for you? Was it exhausting? Or was it
It's
just fun?
exhausting. It's both. It's definitely exhausting. I remember the first time I did Brown Girl Dreaming. I think we did that over 2 days. So it was going home and coming back. And your voice does, I mean, I don't have the muscles that my friend Toshi has, who's been singing for, 40 years. Um, and I don't have the skill set. So I'm more adenoidal, right? I speak kind of above the neck instead of remembering to speak from my stomach. Um, so all of that means that I don't have the stamina of someone else who can do long books. But it's exhausting. It's definitely exhausting. You definitely have to take care of your voice. There's a lot of tea drinking, a lot of water drinking, a lot of getting a good night's sleep before not drinking. Alcohol is terrible on the vocal cords. Um, and really, you know, can't be a bad allergy day. So a lot of things you really have to think about. And also when I'm doing an audiobook, I do very little speaking that the day before and the day of, and then go into the studio where I'm going to use it. And it's a lot of prep. It's almost meditative in the way that you have to kind of like, okay, Jacqueline, now you're here, get into the character, breathe out the story. But I love it. I love it. I remember when I was a kid, people would always tell me I should do voiceovers for cartoons because I have this kind of different voice. And I can't sing, I really can't sing. I'm tone deaf. I can't carry a tune. So for me, it's like, wow, I get to use my voice. Like, when I sing, no one wants to hear my voice, but here people actually want to hear it. So that makes me grateful.
Oh, I am surprised about that. Because I think that there is a lot of musicality in your
Mm,
voice, you know. And I can
thank you,
hear, I
Sarah.
mean, even just like sometimes I feel like my face is breaking. I smile because I just love hearing like you have this lightness and this like kind of wonder and joy in your voice, which I think is like really
Thank you.
communicated. So,
Thanks
um,
so much.
yeah. Um, let's see. I have, oh, okay. Um, so let's talk a little bit about your earlier work and what it's been like to kind of revisit that and to dive into that again. Have those years, and sometimes it's been, like, a chunk of time for some of them. Has
Mhm.
that changed the way that you approach those stories? Do you ever want to like change things? I would have a very terrible time narrating my own work because I would be like, no, terrible word choice. Let's
Oh,
try that again.
oh.
But like, how is that process? I would feel kind of vulnerable if it were me, but
Mhm.
I'm wondering that might be like part of what you do all the time. So
Well, it's funny because with the middle grade and young adult novels, I'm not reading them. Those aren't the ones that I'm revisiting myself. Those are the ones that actors are visiting. So I'm glad because I would be rewriting the heck out of them. And I've just learned so much about writing. And it's not even about changing the story, because I think the stories hold up. But it is about language. It's about how we've learned to read differently. I've never been a big fan of adjectives anyway, but I would probably go through and take out a whole bunch more. I would probably look at the white space a little bit more and let the reader do a little bit more work, like I've learned to do in my later books. I would probably think, I remember in If You Come Softly, there's a point where after one of the main characters, something happens to him, and the other one is talking about time, and she says, time moves through us, it moves slowly, it sits with us for a moment, and then long before we're ready, it moves on. And I remember writing that and thinking, I really love the poetry of this moment, and I want to do more of this. And it was kind of a turning point in my writing at that point. Um, but there are places. I remember someone sent me a Jacqueline Woodson quote, and I was like, I didn't write that. And then I found it was, I think it was in, I can't remember which book it was in. It might have been Melanin Sun. But it's moments like that that I do think, oh, if I was reading it, if I went back to reread it, I could actually look at this and revisit it. But I think there would be many times I'd be like, oh no, let me restructure this sentence.
I'm looking here. I have a bunch of Jacqueline Woodson quotes because
Really?
I was doing a deep dive into your work yesterday, and
Oh,
so
you're
many
so
things I
good.
just felt like I needed to like write down. But the one that I really like, and I think you were speaking about Brown Girl Dreaming, is you said, and this is something you just mentioned as well, but memories come to people in small bursts. It comes in these small moments with all of the white space around it. And I
Mm.
loved that.
Thank
And
you.
that idea of white space and the fullness
Mhm.
of that space, I'm thinking about that Japanese concept of ma, which
Yeah.
is like it looks empty, but it's full to bursting with,
Well, yeah.
possibilities and everything that's unsaid. And
Hmm.
I like the idea of translating that into audio as well. Um, I'm always, I edit audiobook reviews and that's what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm always a little taken aback when, because I was trained in the ALA,
Hmm.
book stuff. So we don't like speed up books, and we listen to them at the speed that they were intended.
Yeah.
And so people say things like, well, if you listen at 3.5 times, then you can get through it pretty quick. And I'm like, what?
I
Is
know.
that what
I've heard
I
people listening that way. And I'm like, how do you even understand it? And
it's
as a
the
writer,
I
oh,
it pains me, but because I think what it is people are listening for they're listening for the plot and the
mm-hmm,
storyline rather than all of the things that are I'm thinking of like a river that are like underneath that are like
so true.
surfacing. And so if you let it if you let it be at the speed it's supposed to be, then there's
Mm-hmm,
time for those things to surface. And I think especially with writing like yours, that's not necessarily like solely focused on plot. That
mm-hmm.
it like having that space is so important. So I would recommend that
Uh,
people, for sure, like listen at the speed it was intended for, because there's a reason for that. But
Thank you.
yeah. I don't. That's one thing I think is interesting about audio for me, at least, which is
Mm-hmm.
that I I'm a terrible person who, when I'm reading with my eyes, because I will often go to the end of the book, find out what happens, and then
Uh-huh.
I go back and read the book. But and I read very quickly, and sometimes that means I'm skimming, which I have to stop myself from skimming because
Oh
I
my
don't want to
goodness.
skim. And this is why I love audio, especially with poetry, and that's why I like to listen to it, because there's no skimming. You are you're in it and you're experiencing it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not speeding it up. And I think that I get so much out of that. But I am wondering why you've been like very involved in audio, and I'm wondering,
Uh-huh.
what do you think it offers somebody who is, maybe like used to reading with their eyes, and what do you reach different people with audiobooks, and what are
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that make it exciting or interesting or different?
Well, for one, you can multitask, right? And some people tell me that they lose their train of thought if they're doing something else and listening to audiobooks. It's a different way of paying attention, right? So I think you have to hone that muscle in terms of doing that. But I tend to get more out of, especially nonfiction. I tend to hold more. Um, but I also think it is a way to deeply engage with the story because I find myself hearing for the story more than I am hearing for the writing. And when the writing is really beautiful, I find myself having to rewind because I was like, wait, she just said something really beautiful. How did she do that? Let me just go back and re-listen to it. But it is it for me it harkens back to oral history, right? And oral storytelling, like and I talk about this in the TED talk, like right before we were even allowed to read or knew how to read, we had story and we had people telling us stories. And I feel like that's what audiobooks are. It's someone telling you a story, and all you have to do is sit and listen to it. And that just feels like a gift to me to be able to sit and listen to the story and not have to hold the book, not have to follow along with the words, but just have it come to you almost by osmosis. But I think it is a really like original way of hearing story. Um, and for me, every time I listen to an audiobook, I feel like it's a gift I'm giving myself. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so I give myself a lot of gifts. But it is such a different kind of escape for me.
Wow, that's great. I absolutely love that about story and the power of
Hmm.
story. I think you're really spot on there about like that almost like that primal thing.
Hmm.
And the connection. I feel much as like you might have a storyteller who's telling the story, you like the narrator can be that person, but also the author through the narrator, but I feel like this connection to the people who are giving that story to me. And like I've had an experience where I might meet a narrator who um, I'm just, gushing over and saying like, oh, and then when you did this, and then I really love this, and they are just feeling like, who are you again? Like, are we friends? And I feel like, oh, that's
We,
right, we're not friends, but I feel like we are because I feel so connected to them, and I just think that that's like, it's kind of a sacred thing,
yeah.
to have that.
It's so funny because I've had so many people say, "Oh, you've been in my life for, 3 months now," because they've been listening to Brown Girl Dreaming, so they've been hearing my voice. So it's been like they've been in conversation with me, and so that when they do meet me, it's like, "Oh, we know each other." I'm like, "Please," but I love it. I think it's such a great thing. So, and I also, one other thing I love about audiobooks is you get the correct pronunciation of names. I hate that I forget this book that I was listening to, but it was a lot of it was in Tagalog, and being able to hear those pronunciations felt like I had I was getting more than if I had read it, because I would have just came up with my own pronunciations and they would have been wrong. So that was cool.
I totally agree. I mean, I absolutely agree, and I love this trend. I don't know if I that's the right word, but like recently a lot of publishers, and I think PRH is definitely one of them, are being very thoughtful about matching the narrator with the content so that
Hmm.
they can
Hmm.
really speak with respect and be
Hmm.
honoring those words. And I just so appreciate that because there's nothing worse than finding out. It's like misgendering somebody or something like that. There's nothing worse than
Yes.
finding out that you've been saying this in this like terribly wrong way. And
Hmm.
I just want to even in my head know what that is. Just
Yes.
it feels like just like the least I can do in terms of respect
Hmm.
and care, and for especially for language which needs to be protected.
So
So
true. So
yeah.
true. Thanks
All
for
right.
saying that, Sarah.
All right, I have one more question. I think that I might have the answer for this, but I was going to ask you if you're a listener, a reader, or both, and it sounds like you're both. And I just always want to say to everybody out there, it is okay to be just one or the other and not both, because I think sometimes there's guilt over that. I especially hear it with guilt with people thinking that it's not okay that they can't listen, or not okay that they only listen, that it
Hmm.
somehow doesn't count. And I really, that hurts my heart. So listening counts for sure.
Yes.
Um,
Oh.
but I am wondering, what are you listening to now? What are you excited about?
I am listening to, there's so many great books out there. Um, I just finished listening to Emma Straub's new book. What was the title? I have to look it up, but it's basically about a boy band that gets back together like 50 years later, and it's called American Fantasy, and it's kind of like if New Edition of New Kids on the Block got back together and they were all in their 50s. And then I listened to more Than Enough by Anna Quinlan. I love her work. I'm always listening to Isabel Wilkerson's cast, because every time I listen to it, I get something new out of it. So it stays on my playlist. And then I was, oh, Z Pam. I don't know how to pronounce her last name is Z. Zhang. This is Zhang Chang.
I would
But
say
she wrote a
Zhang.
young. She wrote a book called "In the Land of Milk and Honey." That's beautiful, and that's one of the books where there's some Korean, there's some Chinese, there's some German, there's some Italian, and this narrator just gets it all. I'm like, how many languages does she speak? But it's a beautiful book. I'm trying to think, but I have a number of books in rotation, and I read at night. So right now I'm reading The Galley for um, Min Jin Lee's new book, American Hagwon, which is so good and 700 pages. But I for some reason I can't listen to books when I'm in bed. I have to read them. But what are you listening to?
Oh my goodness. I am listening to a funny little book. It's called Isabella Nag and the Pot of Basil.
Oh, that's a great
Which is
title.
like it's like a fantasy book. I and it's like it's so delightful. I just like can't even stand it. It's so good. Um, but I also just finished re-listening to Brown Girl Dreaming. As I so
Thank
I
you.
really did enjoy that so much. And then the other little picture book that I just listened to was Don't Trust Fish, which I
Mm.
highly recommend in audio and in print as well. But oh my goodness, what a funny little book that is. So good.
So I have a question about that. So that's a picture book?
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I always talk to people about this, about how important it is when you write a picture book that the words have to stand alone without the illustrations, because a publisher wants to be able to imagine what the pictures are going to be like in their mind. But when you listen to a picture book on audio, what happens to the pictures there?
So I think it can go in a lot of different ways. Surprisingly, if you're looking for award contention, like Odyssey or
Mhm.
something like that, then you need to make sure that the reading is exactly the same as the book. So if you
Mhm.
have writing on trucks, that's like captured in the audio. But for
Oh.
sort of pleasure reading and reading, with a young child by your side, it can go in different ways. One is to just have a straight reading of the book, which is, with all like the feeling and everything that the narrator
Mhm.
can muster. But this book was a little different because they actually had, I think it was called an amended version, where they had like some descriptions of the pictures. And so
Oh,
you could do it that
wow.
way. So the book comes with two different versions, which I thought was just great. And the narrator
Uh-huh.
could not be a better fit. So I mean, it's a 5-minute listen, but I listened to it again and again. I just really
Oh, tell
loved
me the
it.
title of it again.
It's called Don't Trust Fish.
Okay. I'm going to listen to it today. Thank you.
Yeah, so I listen. It's by Neil Sharpson, Neil Sharpson.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that I listen to all kinds of things. I like doing that. But the picture book of that itself, Dan Santat did the
Oh,
illustrations. So I mean, it's
so
kind of
great. I love him.
great. Any way you look at it, it's a great thing. So.
Thank you for that.
All right. Well, gosh, I think, and I just want to see. Oh, and that's a listening library production, just so you know, in the audio.
Oh,
So,
okay.
um, it will be available on the PRH app.
Oh, cool. I love
Yep,
that.
yep, yep. Okay. So gosh, thank you so much. This was just the best. What a really stimulating conversation. And thank you so much for your work and for
Thank
your
you.
thoughtfulness and for I think like the message of hope that you put out into the world. It makes a difference and I really do I really do love to read your books. Um, and so, to everyone else, thank you, librarians and educators, for joining us today. We have 2 concurrent panels coming up, so stay tuned for that. And happy listening, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Be listening. Take care. Thanks, Sarah.